Hi. Okay, this is my second time filming this, so I actually wrote an outline this time. So I'm gonna be like looking over my notes and stuff. This is gonna be a little bit more structured. I don't know if it's gonna be super structured, but it's gonna be a little structured, which is, better than not at all, and how I was doing it before. The lighting might change because I might cut around. It's raining sometimes. There's gonna be some police cars in the background because this is a city. And but yeah, let's get started. Hi. My name is Isaac. I think my name is Isaac. I don't know what my name is right now. I use they, them pronouns. And I wanted to talk about experimenting with hormones because I literally didn't see any videos about this before I started experimenting with hormones. And I guess it would have been nice to know. I mean, you can't really know until you start, but it would have been nice to know that there's other people who are doing this and it's a thing that you can do. So yeah, right now I'm on low dose estrogen. I've been on low dose estrogen for around close to 2 months, almost 2 months, not quite yet, but almost. And I initially took estrogen and started taking estrogen to try it, not because I wanted anything specific out of it, but because I wanted to try it. I wanted to experiment with hormones. I allowed myself to experiment with hormones, and I know that there are other people out here doing that. And I want to give permission and normality to the idea that we should experiment with hormones and see what feels best for our bodies and for ourselves. But I wish I could, there's some things that I wanted to know beforehand, what to expect in terms of the mental gymnastics that you do when experimenting with hormones. How do you decide what you want out of the hormones? How does that all come about? And I'm sure it's just different for different people, but I'm here. I'm going to share my story. I'm going to share some experiences I had, some just some anxieties that came with experimenting with hormones. Yeah, and that kind of stuff. I hope this is helpful. I'm also, anything I say here is not definitive. There's no definitive way to be trans or to do hormones or anything, and we all live in different places. There's gonna be different kinds of rules, but I just kind of wanted to give a little general outline for what might happen, potentially, and to just help other people maybe notice signs about what's happening. If someone can relate to me, please put that in the comments. I would love to hear from people who are also experimenting with hormones. But yeah, I just want to go over what is to be expected. So I guess the first thing that I would say is if you're on a low dose, don't expect a lot in terms of changes in terms of your body. There probably isn't going to be too many changes that happen. Do expect a lot of mental changes though, because of how hormones are perceived in our society. It's really difficult to start hormones without having a lot of anxiety and a lot of other emotions that come with it. And that's okay, and that's normal. Knowing that these anxiety everyone has these kind of anxieties is really helpful. Obviously, people who are on higher dosages might have a different experience with that. But I think it's very normal to have anxiety, especially if you're just experimenting and doing something that is considered pretty taboo. I thought beforehand that there was going to be a lot of mental changes that would happen to me, but I don't think there really were a lot of I don't think it changed my personality or anything like that, or changed how I viewed the world, really. Or, it was basically the same, I think, which was interesting. I was just oh, this is the same for me. This feels pretty similar. But there were a couple, emotional changes. Like maybe I'm like more reticent to like cry, or I'm not sure if that's the right word, but like there were a couple things. Like I've become a lot less angry. Like I haven't had like consuming, like overwhelming anger in a while. I've been angry, but it's just not like super overwhelming. Yeah, and so there were those like biological factors that did change just a little bit. And also like I had a little, I think I have a little tiny breast growth, like very small, basically unnoticeable, but like my nipples are like doing stuff right now. But like my relationship with that changed, right? How I felt about those things when they happened really indicated to me about other things, which I'll get into later. So I guess the one thing to expect is don't expect too much from the hormones when you're experimenting with them, but do expect like your relationship to your gender and your body is going to change. Not necessarily because of a biological reason, but just because of like, duh, you know what I mean? Like, of course your relationship with your body is going to change when you're doing something that is considered abnormal in the world and like not allowed in our society. So, yeah, my relationship with my body and like gender in general has changed a lot, and like sex, like the concept of sex has changed a lot, and like in the past like couple months. Yeah, so just expect that when you're going into hormones. I kind of knew that was going to happen, but like no one like said that out loud to me. But yeah, expect change about your relationship to your body and your gender and your brain and like stuff like that. There became 3 main questions after I started hormones that became very big questions. And those 3 questions were, should I stop hormones? Should I continue at a low dose? Or should I raise my dosage? And I kind of just cycled through those questions constantly. And I'm still cycling through them a bit. I think it's okay to have those kinds of questions. But I wasn't expecting those specific questions when I was going into hormones. I was like, oh, I'll just try this and see how I feel. But it's like you start having a very different relationship with your gender and your body and stuff. And like now it's like, wait, what is this thing that is changing my body? Am I like doing something weird? Like, oh, how far do I want to go with this? When do I want to stop? Do I have an exit plan? Like all these things come up. But I kind of boiled them down to those 3 questions. And so basically, in order to decide what you want to do with the hormones, this is where I'm going to get into kind of how I think about guiding myself in terms of experimentation with hormones. Is I have these 3 questions and I need to choose one option eventually. Because I'm just going to continue to have these questions. So it's like, how do I evaluate how I feel in a way that will help me make a decision? And for that, it's going to be different for everyone. But for me, I think I started noticing dysphoria in different ways after I started hormones, and euphoria in different ways. And I think I remember like feeling before I started hormones this like sense of like really being excited and really needing this to happen. And I wasn't really sure why, because I was just like, okay, I need the hormones and like this needs to happen, and like I've been like waiting for this to happen, and like also there's a lot of build up to getting hormones, so like that kind of makes sense. But I was very excited, and I was also very nervous, and I think but like when it got delayed and stuff, my reactions told me a lot about how I felt about hormones, and I would be like kind of upset and be like, fuck, I got a little bit delayed, I got pushed back, like, but that told me like, okay, this is something that you need to do. And so after I started hormones, I think the second day after starting hormones, I was like, oh, I do feel a little dysphoric about my body, or it's not even my body, but like how I perceive myself. And that does make me a little dysphoric. And then it went away. And that was, that's the weird thing about dysphoria, is it goes away sometimes. So it's just like it goes away maybe most of the time. And so, I could ignore it, or like think about like different things that were happening that, maybe didn't relate to dysphoria. But I think immediately afterwards, I felt like, okay, clearly there was a reason I was so excited to do this. And part of that might be dysphoria. And I still have like moments where I'm like, oh, I look really weirdly male in this, and that's like making me uncomfortable. And so just noting when you have dysphoria, or if you have dysphoria at all. Okay, just noting when or if you have dysphoria, and just being a little bit more conscious of it, I think is important. And I think obviously for me at least, the most important part is the euphoria aspect. I think for most people it is kind of that. It's like, oh, I'm really happy that I'm, more aligned with how I feel. I did notice that when I did have those really small mental changes or emotional changes, is I would get kind of a sense of euphoria. Like when my sex drive changed a little bit and I started experiencing arousal in a different way, I felt really good. Like it felt really good to, and obviously, I don't know exactly why or whatever, but it just, it felt better. And especially when there was just one day where I woke up and my nipples were hard, and I was just like, oh shit, this is happening. I was felt like this was weird rock in my nipples, and I was like, oh my god, I'm doing this. But it wasn't a bad reaction. It wasn't oh no. It was okay, today is the day, right? Today is the day it starts. And but I did feel more neutral about it than things that were emotional. So clearly, to me at least, my body doesn't matter too much, but the emotional aspect is clearly important. And so just noting dysphoria, euphoria, seeing what aspects that change how they make you feel, obviously is important. And that's kind of how I thought of it was going to be when I initially went in. But if you think that the emotional changes or whatever are going to make you happier, or the voice changes or something, they probably will. Because I kind of figured that would make me happier, and it did. And I guess when you're evaluating the 3 questions, especially if you are considering just continuing on a low dose of hormones, I think one thing to consider is how comfortable you feel now, if that makes sense. How comfortable do you feel being on low dose, whatever hormone you're taking, and is that enough for you? Especially because low dose hormones don't really change how you look that much, or I think there's slight changes, but not too much. Just being aware, are you just comfortable with maybe emotional experience? Or are you just comfortable with doing this really slowly? Or maybe, and how taxing is this physical transition that you're going through? If it's a situation in which doing this for a while and having a physical transition that's lasting a while is a little taxing, you might want to up your dosage, because ultimately you are going to change, but just at a slower rate. One of the big things for me was when I was evaluating if I should raise my dosage, was my comfort with my current body. And the thing is I am comfortable with my body right now. I had to question that a little bit, but I think I ultimately decided that I was, and that it wasn't like I wasn't very insecure. I'm not very insecure with my body. I'm not insecure. Like I'm not really the kind of person to like wear a shirt at the beach. You know what I mean? So I'm comfortable with my body, but actually I'm not sure how I feel about this. I'm not sure how I feel about this right now. I need to think about this. Right. Okay. I think I'm separating hormones from my body, but not necessarily from my biology. And that my biology is telling me certain things. And so I might be comfortable with my body and think my body's sexy, but I don't necessarily enjoy perceiving myself as male, which I am unable to unlink sex from gender, even however much I want to with my own body. I can definitely do that with other people, which is frustrating, but I can't do it with myself, which is like kind of annoying. But it does feel to a certain extent that my assigned gender is still attached to the sex that I have. And I think everyone has a different like take on this and a different opinion with their own body, because I know lots of people who, you know, a lot of non-binary people don't feel that their body, they feel good in their body, and like it doesn't necessarily mean anything about their gender, but for me it does. And so, or it's just hard to unlink that. Yeah, I think the main question, I don't even know what I'm saying right now, but like the main question that you should ask yourself is, can you separate your body and your sex from your gender identity? And then after that question, do you feel comfortable with your current body? In a gender-related way, I guess. Because you could feel insecure about your body, but maybe that means you don't need a transition, but, you know, you need to do something else. So that's something to keep in mind. I think the last thing I definitely wanted to talk about is to expect reactions from people. Expect maybe more transphobia. Take your time, you know. Take your time, but at the same time, realize that everything you're doing is reversible. People say that it's not reversible, or that it's like, you know, once you do this, you can never go back. But it's like, you actually can. And so it's very strange that when I hear this from people, I mean, it's just kind of transphobic, but like, you can reverse, you know what I mean? You can change things with your body. You can grow boobs, you can take them off, you can then get another set of boobs. Like, you're not, I mean, all those things sound really like difficult, obviously, but it's not, nothing needs to be permanent. You don't need to think about this in a permanent way. I think that's what scares people a lot of times. It's like, I'm permanently changing my body. It's like, you're not. You're just not. That's just false. And it's like my body is changing anyways. I was thinking about this when I'm thinking about stopping hormones in particular is like, this is what I come back to often when I'm considering, like, what if I just stopped doing this? It's like, would I feel comfortable with my body becoming more masculine? And the answer is just no. It's a very hard line for me. I'm like, oh, well, I would rather it not, become more masculine in this way. And so that definitely deters me from stopping, and is probably one of the initial reasons why I started. It's because I just didn't want to become more masculine. And I was happy, I think, if I would be a little bit more feminine in my, in everything. I'm going to say at the end here, I hope this video is like somewhat helpful. I don't know how helpful this is going to be. We'll see. I'll edit it together and just we'll see what happens. But I hope it's helpful to anyone who's experimenting. And yay, go experiment. This shit's cool.